I'm sure you remember my first guest from her Oscar-winning performance as the unfaithful wife, put it mildly, in the film Shampoo with Warren Beatty, or the femme fatale in Peyton Place. I'm talking, of course, about a lady with the initials LG, and you're in for a treat because she is an equally talented director and has produced some stunning documentaries. I mean, of course, Lee Grant. Welcome her. Welcome. You feel welcomed?
Yes, I do.
I did not know, for one thing, that you had been blacklisted. I don't know why. I've known you all these years,
yes.
And if I knew it, I had repressed it. And I'm just old enough to remember the McCarthy hearings. Are you bitter about that? I would be.
I don't think I'm bitter about it, because bitter means that you've been beaten and defeated, and that you haven't been able to do anything about it. And
yeah.
Fortunately, it was my college education. The blacklist was my education. I learned everything out of that period. I knew nothing before. I was a little, Jap princess on Riverside Drive, and I learned to read newspapers and everything.
Does anyone not know what Jap means, perhaps, in some remote area of
Jewish American
New York City?
Yes, I was traumatized by the period. It is not nice to live for 12 years being on the outside of society and not on the inside. And for years, when I went to Hollywood and go to these awards that I was up for, I expected somebody to say, out.
Yeah.
You don't belong here. You're still blacklisted.
Or maybe, we're sorry about all those years, honey, but don't hold it against us.
No, none of that.
Nothing like that.
But
weren't you ever tempted as an actress to want to get up in front of the committee and tell them to shove it the way so many people did?
Yes, I was.
Just for the moment.
Of course, you're always tempted to do that. But in that period, if you did, you could go to jail.
Yes.
So the thing was to survive. And I learned how to survive, and I think that it certainly made the films that I'm doing now are certainly a product of that period.
Let's get to those. I can see how that would influence.
Yeah.
I think I can. When Women Kill was that the first in the three that I'm thinking of? When Women Kill and the transsexual transvestite film.
Those were two of three that I've done for Home Box Office, which has a documentary division. I did one documentary before about women in Minnesota who went on strike against a bank.
Yeah. Are you a woman who kills in the sense that you wish people would stop saying you're the nymphomaniac from Shampoo when you do these fine documentaries and other things?
I loved being the nymphomaniac in Shampoo. It's the part closest to myself.
Of course. I'm sure every woman would agree, and there will be no jokes about how did you study for the role and immerse yourself in it.
Philosopher / nymphomaniac has always been my...
That's what it says on your card, is it?
Yes.
Why don't we, well, do you feel like you're a woman with a mission? Is that a way of saying why you do these documentaries?
I think so. I think there's no way of avoiding that. I do feel, I think at a certain point, all of us who sit at home and watch the television and see what's happening, and at a certain point start screaming back and say no, get an opportunity to say, I'll do it my way.
Let's take a look at a clip from one of these, and you'll see, have you not been lucky enough to see them, what we mean. Can we roll that?
I heard the door open, he started firing shots over my head. And I started screaming. And when I started screaming, he stopped, and I said, "What do you think you're doing?" I screamed. I said, "What do you think you're doing?" He says, "I'm gonna kill you, you effing old hag." And I seen the end of the gun, and I grabbed it and I pulled it. And he reached for it, and I jabbed him in the stomach with it. When I jabbed him in the stomach, he held his stomach, and I turned the gun around and I fired a shot. And that's all I remember.
That obviously was from When Women Kill. When Women Kill. How do you keep from getting so emotionally involved with something like that?
I am emotionally involved. I am when I see it again, it just recalls things for me that was, I think, the hardest film that I ever made, because I was in prison with women and I could leave every day. And Violet, who killed in self-defense, and most women who kill, it's a crime of passion. They don't have a history of crime. There is a history of alcohol and abuse in the house, and of being beaten up. And something happens, a weapon appears, it turns around, they grab it. And they've killed the person they love, first of all, so that there's that enormous loss. And then, since today, there is no self-defense. The plea has almost disappeared.
Was that second-degree murder that she was in for?
I don't know. I don't.
Yeah.
Manslaughter. But
Probably,
the thing is that all these women who have turned the gun and killed lose not only the man they love, but they lose their freedom entirely. Now, she may be in for 15 to 25. I don't know what, but you know, she's what, 39, 40 now, and there is such an unfairness to me about this system. It's interesting that before liberation, there'd be a much more kind of patriarchal view of that. You know, oh, the little lady, they were drunk, you know, and this happened, you know, and it's still in small towns it happens. Well, you know, he just went at her, and so she turned the gun on, let it go, let it go.
You see this kind of a liberation backlash there,
Yes,
that if
I
women
do.
want to be equal, they can stay in jail as long as we can?
That's right. It's like, and of course, these women are the least liberated. These are the good girls. That's what the documentary was about. It's the good girls who end up in prison because they do what their parents told them. They do what the school told them. Usually, their mothers were beaten, their grandmothers were beaten. Violet, left a man who was good to her to marry a man who beat her, because that is the only way that she knew love existed.
That's how she thought it was supposed to be.
That's right.
Let's take a look at the second clip of that really startling documentary you did on transsexuals, transvestism. They aren't the same thing, are they?
Kathy is a 26-year-old man. In just a few days, she will have major surgery at a Texas medical center to complete the transformation from male to female. Kathy's feminine appearance is the result of hormones and silicone implants. She's been living as a woman now for 18 months. She's dancing in this club to earn the money for her sex reassignment surgery. Not a person in the audience would suspect that Kathy is a man.
You'd be strange if you did suspect she was a man, wouldn't you? Especially after that last shot. When you roamed the country finding homosexuals, transsexuals, people ready to have the operation and so forth, did you find that you hadn't seen everything?
Yes. I didn't roam the country looking for homosexuals. These people do not consider themselves homosexuals. They're not men who are in love with other men and want to stay men and who are proud of being men. They are people who feel that they were chemically imbalanced and born to be the opposite sex. Kathy felt he was born to be a woman, and was tortured. They're very conventional people. They want to live very conventional lives, and was tortured until he became the she that he felt he was born to be.
Yeah. It's interesting, the categories, because they aren't necessarily homosexual. It seems like the people who cross-dress, as they call it, men who have to dress as women, are often respectable businessmen who sneak off and do this and find their only solace that way, according to this, and only peace of mind.
Yes, these also are straight men, not homosexual men.
What do you make of that? What does psychiatry say?
Well, what they say is that their background was so repressed and that they were forced to be such little men, and that being a man was somebody who did not show tender feelings, who did what they were told, and who never cried, that their only way today of breaking down, of having a good time, of not being rigid, is to actually put on the clothes of the sex that's permitted to do all those things. And there's also a big sexual release in it.
We'll be back after this. Where are we? I tend to. If you just joined us, I'm talking with the wonderful Lee Grant, not only a marvelous actress, but the projects that
Well-known
she's done.
nymphomaniac.
And part-time nymphomaniac. All in the line of business, of course, which separates you from nymphomaniacs who only do it for pleasure.
Oh.
Shall I go back and clear that up, or shall we move on? We do have one other clip, and I'll decide whether you help me decide whether we should see it or not. It's probably startling to people who've never seen this sort of thing. But the idea that men who dress as women are not doing it for homosexual reasons is still an interesting fact, I think, to most people, and it's surprising. And that somewhere out there, many people's fathers, brothers, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick
Are putting on the pantyhose.
Are pulling on pantyhose somewhere. I found out of a case of it in a family I knew, and it was so stunning.
Yes.
That even though you think you can be objective about it, it's almost
because
impossible.
most of the men involved in doing that are really such kind of rigid men's roles. You know, they're pilots and
not what
they're
you'd call a sissy boy in the old days.
No, it's exactly the opposite. It's people who are real he-men who do it, heads of corporations, you know.
If I haven't thrown a curve to the control room, let's take a look at that, shall we? Might make an interesting point.
Are you in love with yourself as...
No, No, not really. I emulated women, though. It's the only way, I had to live vicariously through women with large breasts. So at that time it was important because I didn't think I had any potential that way.
And now you've got them.
Now I've got them.
And what do you need with a woman?
I need women for relationships.
I don't know who that man particularly is, but he could be the father of 5 and somebody's husband.
He is. He is the father of a couple of children. I think he's divorced from his wife now.
I guess the thing that remains with me most from that documentary was the man who realized that he had, as in Woody Allen's joke about the person who had several sex changes, they couldn't come up with anything he liked. The true life version of that was a tragic man who realized it had been a mistake.
Yes.
What can you say about that? Did you ever say to him or anyone, why did you do it, or why are you going to do it? Stop?
Yes. Oh, yes, I did. When I first got involved with this and saw this group, you know, of bizarre-looking men like football players dressed up in really tacky clothes. I mean, their whole concept is really from their mother's day. You know, I'm talking about the transvestites.
As women, they had poor taste in women's clothes.
That's right, because it went back to their. And I went to the ladies' room, and as I was washing my hands, I was joined by one of the fellas who washed his hands with me and said, and he really looked like a hippie. He wasn't. He was wearing jeans, and he was wearing a brassiere, but long hair. But he was a really hippie-looking kind of guy. And he said, "I can't wait, you know, to get the operation, you know." And I just, you know, it was the first time I met. I said, "Are you crazy? You know, are you mad? I mean, you're castrating yourself. What are you talking about? I mean, you can't put that back. I mean, once it's gone, that's it. Why are you doing this? I mean, think about it." And he said, "How would you like to wake up in the morning and look down and see that ugly thing between your legs?" And
I've often asked myself the same thing. I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. There are possibilities for humor, you'll admit. I almost said, "Can we cut that out?" This is awful.
Well,
I do think we can all identify
to
some extent in that we've all felt like outsiders. But what were you going to say? Sorry, I've sent this off in the wrong direction.
No, but well, that's the thing, you know.
Yeah.
I'm married to an Italian. I mean, so the idea that anybody would look down and say that's the ugly thing between my legs is so far removed from any experience that I have ever. But
it's kind of a prehistoric remnant, isn't it? I mean, I don't know. It's.
I don't think so. I think it's a necessity, I think.
Oh, well, no one's arguing that.
It really does the job, you know?
Let me tell you this. I went, speaking of humor, I went to a transvestite ball in New Orleans. It's hard not to in New Orleans, in the French Quarter, and I thought I was going to be cool, and I was prepared for almost anything that might happen. The thing I realized I wasn't prepared for "Can I stand up?" was in the urinals, all of these beauties in beautiful gowns having to go in order to pee.
Yeah.
And I had not prepared myself for that, and that image will never leave me.
Well, you know, in the she-male section of the movie that I did, where there were prostitutes who still remained with the penises, one of the great lines that one of them said to me, you know, just because I have a penis doesn't mean I'm any less of a woman.
I know, that's a...
And I said, I understand.
If
That's how far
you said
I
you
went.
understand. Well, if that isn't the quote of the year, I don't know what... I asked a beautiful black hooker once in the French Quarter who looked, if you can picture, say, Walt Frazier in miniskirt and heels for me the next, or Dr. J, a 7-foot wonder. And I said, if you pulled your pants down, what would I see? She says, oh, honey, here, I'll show you. And what I saw appeared to be a lady's vaginal area, or pudendum, or whatever. I'm trying to find all the nice words for...
Yeah.
And I said, but that's a miracle. So where is it? It says, underneath. I said, but how do the men you pick up not know you're a woman? He said, oh, honey, they're so drunk sometimes they don't know where they are. Now, these are, in some ways, admirable, tough people. They've had a wretched life. They risk their lives. They make, in some sense, an honest buck. They're kicked around and they survive, or do they? How long do they live?
It's a tough life.
Yeah.
It's tough.
I asked Jan Morris, I said, in reading your book, when she had the famous writer and explorer and father of four and so on, who became a woman some years back and wrote that book, Conundrum, the only thing I couldn't get my mind around was the line toward the end, if I had not found a doctor who would do it, I would have taken a razor and done it myself.
Yes.
I guess what you can understand the depth with which they mean, I'm in the wrong body and I mean it?
Yes.
Can you
I am a freak. I am in the wrong body.
Could you play that as an actress?
Yes. Because I'm involved. Yes.
Yeah. And of course there are women to men too. We seem to have left out the fact that in
Yes,
the
half of the
documentary
operations now are women to men, and they're much more successful.
Yeah.
Because the men to women are lonely. They don't have mates.
Mm-hmm.
They're lonely ladies. The women to men, women don't mind having a relationship with somebody who's become a man. They don't have that questioning of their femininity.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas men have question when they're attracted to a man who's become a woman.
Yeah. Did you run across cases where the sex change person had concealed it and married? I know of one.
No.
Where the husband does not know that he's married to a former sailor.
No, but one of our people was married and had the sex change.
Yeah.
And became a lesbian lover with his wife.
Lee, why did Johns Hopkins, who I understand performed several thousand of these operations a year up until a few years ago, quit?
Well, there was a whole a lot of publicity about it, and I don't know that much about it, except that it was thrown up because they said that there were a lot of suicides from people who performed, who had the operation and then regretted it, and there were so many suicides that they stopped doing it.
They needed more, what, counseling beforehand?
Yes, the procedure, well, you know that we had Clifford in our film just for that, because there were many people who were brought up in very repressed areas, were very church fundamentalist oriented, who are homophobic, who are homosexual, but who are told that homosexuality is the greatest sin in the world. And so for them, they think that becoming a transsexual is the way out.
Yeah.
And what happens if a homosexual has that operation and is basically a homosexual and is removing his penis? I mean, the whole eradication of your sex, is just too much to bear.
Clifford lay on a bed depressed and had felt he had made a mistake. Is he still alive? Do we know?
Yes.
Yeah. This is fascinating. Lee, well, congratulations on the splendid work you're doing. Your next project will be called?
Down and Out in the USA.
Down and Out in the... We can talk to Malcolm Forbes about that.
I wish you would.
Malcolm Forbes once said the difference between the men and the boys is the price of their toys. You'll meet the man who made that remark, and he'll be with us shortly. Stay with us.